Going
Good. How you doing?
good. Just wanted to see kind of how it all came together with the Red Sox. Were they kind of one of the teams you were targeting at the beginning of the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the free agency thing is a pretty fluid deal, but obviously I have some familiarity playing in the Northeast and the Cape Cod League and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of always liked it up there. I played with a bunch of guys from the Boston area and in school, and so one of those places that you feel a little more tied to than others. And for about 3 or 4 weeks before I ended up signing, I thought that was probably where I was going to go, and happy that it worked out that way.
Walker, wondering if you could talk about the 10 scoreless innings there at the end of your postseason in the NLCS and the World Series, what that did for your confidence and maybe what it did for your value on the free agent market.
Yeah, I mean, I think those obviously go hand in hand. I'm kind of a confidence-driven guy, and when I feel good, things seem to go pretty well. And the last few weeks of the season and into the playoffs, I felt like I was kind of figuring it back out and throwing the ball pretty well. And um, even the San Diego game, which the line was pretty ugly, I think the last 3 innings there were kind of the turning point of my year. Obviously, I wish it would have happened in June or whatever, but it happened at the most important time. And going into this year, I think having something that was such a big deal and so emotional and all of that, I think being able to look back on that, I think is something that helps your confidence a ton. And it's not some start that you felt really good in June and wherever you were playing, right? It was the playoffs and the big boys, and to know that I'm able to perform in that situation, I think is something that's going to be huge for me going forward.
Walker, what was appealing to you about this 1 year structure and doing it this way, betting on yourself at a high value and potentially going back on the market in a year?
I mean, I think it's what we were just talking about, right? The confidence that I'm going to be one of those guys in the major leagues that is super successful. And I've done that for a decent stretch of my career, and then these past 2 years have been rough. And um, without the last 6 weeks of the season, I don't know if we're in the same spot in terms of how I was thinking or the offers that I was getting. So um, I think when a season has gone kind of as poorly as it can, and luckily you wrap a bow on it at the end, I think trying to go and prove it to myself as well as 29 other teams, I guess, is something that is appealing. But at the same time, I think anytime you make a move from playing somewhere for 7 years and go somewhere else, I think there's obviously something behind that, and something that hopefully I bring some value this year and get to play the rest of my career in Boston. But it kind of all starts with me throwing the ball well.
Walker, what was the thing that impressed you most about the Red Sox pitch to you?
I mean, the pitch is more or less getting to know each other and kind of that stuff. Andrew Bailey was a big part of that for me. And the talent, I think, I've played in a place where I've always been the young guy and kind of, the up and coming guy and whatnot. And, at the end of the day, I think it'll be fun to kind of be on the other side of that coin. And, there's a lot of young talent in Boston and a lot of major league kind of proven talent. And, a team that I think is ready and able to compete in the division and in the whole league. So I'm very excited. I have a couple buddies or know a few guys that are there already that I'm looking forward to playing with. And I think all in all, it just seems like a pretty good fit.
Walker, was there anything specific that you saw possibly from, the pitching stuff that they've implemented last year under Andrew Bailey that was sort of intriguing to you in terms of just implementing into your stuff and your entire arsenal that you feel like can help you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot been kind of made about the cutter and the two seamers and stuff like that. Um, I know the guys in Boston threw like the least amount of four seam fastballs or something like that last year, or were down there in the league. And um, to go to a place where that's kind of how they operate, right? That may be the next evolution of my career. And at the end of the year, I threw some really good fastballs, but I kind of did some other stuff as well. And so going somewhere where that's kind of the bread and butter, I think, at least developmentally for me, is huge. And largely we just talked about kind of accentuating some of the stuff that we did at the end of the year with LA and kind of developing it and keeping it going. So hopefully I can kind of take this off season as a little pause instead of this whole reset and kind of get back to what I was doing at the end of the year.
Walker, in terms of just how the free agent process played out, what surprised you about how it went and what kind of met your expectations going through the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, when you're a rookie, you think free agency is going to be 30 teams calling and telling you exactly what they think and giving you an offer every day and raising that offer every other day and whatnot. But, that's just not the way it goes. And, there's a lot of talented players in this year's class, and I kind of understand that. And, also there's some different ways to look at kind of my situation that our team and I kind of looked at in terms of, do we do a multi-year? Do we do a 1 year? Do we go somewhere we really want to? Do we go somewhere and try and help build it? Blah, blah, blah. And for me, the 1 year in Boston and joining a winning franchise and a historical franchise and, a team that has a real chance to win, I think was the best option for me.
Hey,
Walker,
I was just going to ask you that Breslow said he kind of discussed with Bailey and Cora potential of, a 6-man rotation. I know the Dodgers obviously have done that in the past, and I'm just kind of curious, your thoughts on that, kind of how it might be beneficial if that's the route the team goes, and kind of what you think about that as a starter and kind of finding your rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been fine with the 5-day, and years that I've been healthy, we go on 5 or 6. It doesn't really matter to me. Obviously, I've experienced both and been a part of both. So when we talked about it, it was kind of that, like, is there a potential that we would do 6-man? I know we have Gio is supposed to be ready in spring, and then Sandoval coming later in the year. So, I think for me, it's you go to 6-man if you have the talent to do it, if you have 6 guys that are ready to take the ball every day in the big leagues. And I think we certainly do, especially later in the year. And so if that's something they want to go to, I'm obviously open to it or kind of accustomed to it. But there's also some pride in trying to go and make 32 and throw 200. And I know, kind of given my injury history, that's kind of a different deal, but I have done that, and that was something that I'm really proud of, and something I would love to do again. So I think there's pros and cons to both. And I think at the end of the year that 6-man probably paid some dividends for us, but also you've got to get there. And so it's kind of, play it as it lies a little bit.
Walker, what impresses you? What impresses you specifically in regard to this rotation? And you mentioned wanting to kind of be the veteran in the group. What type of advice would you give these guys about pitching deep into the postseason and having had some of that success? And obviously, a lot of these guys haven't pitched in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, obviously trading for Crochet was huge. He has some of the best stuff in the big leagues, and a guy that I know a little bit. Giolito and I have been buddies for a long time, and then the younger guys there, Bello and Hawk, and signing Sandoval. So there's just a lot of talent, a lot of guys that can spin the ball well. I got to learn a changeup from some of these guys. They got better ones than me, but no, I think the playoff stuff for me is something that it's hard to understand anything that I would tell somebody about it unless you've kind of been in it. And hopefully we get there, and I can try and kind of try and help them out there at the end. But I think for me, kind of enjoying it and embracing it is something that is hard to do, but is something that I've always tried to do, and I think has led to a lot of my success in the playoffs.
Walker, you probably pitched one of the best games of your career in the 18 World Series against the Red Sox. What do you remember about that night and waiting 10 innings to see what happened? And
yeah, I was scared shitless, man. I was a rookie pitching in the World Series against a really, really talented offensive team. And at the time, JD was kind of probably the best hitter in the world. And, the one big thing I remember, Honeycutt, our pitching coach at the time, telling me I had to put one by his face every at bat. And I did that, and it kind of went okay. I survived. So, it was a long 10-inning wait. I'll tell you that. I remember, the 17th, just get like 16th, 17th inning, you're just kind of in this delirious state, kind of ready to go home, win, lose, or draw. But, we pulled it out there at the end.
Hey,
You've never gotten to pitch at Fenway before,
Right.
but you've been at Fenway
with the Dodgers. How much was kind of the atmosphere? A lot of your former Dodger teammates like Kenley Jansen have talked about how electric Fenway is. How much did the atmosphere of a place like Fenway Park, play into how you know, see yourself as a pitcher, and kind of does that motivate you or feel different? Was that part of the reason why you wanted to sign?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always kind of been an emotional player and somebody that screams and yells and does all that stuff. So I'm certainly looking forward to kind of the first moment like that at Fenway. But different parks have different strengths and weaknesses and emotions and whatever. And yeah, having not pitched there, I'm looking forward to it certainly. And it was pretty electric when we played there in the World Series, and we got our butts handed to us. So it was pretty loud in there.
Hey Walker. So, we've heard recently how you've invested in a racehorse with Alex Bregman. I'm
Yep.
curious how that came about. And I mean, now that you're here in Boston, have you made a pitch at all to have him join you potentially, if that's in the cards?
I have certainly made a pitch all over the place for him to come to Boston. He and I have been buddies for a long time. We played on Team USA together a little bit in college, and being from Lexington, the horse stuff is something that I've always been super interested in. And Alex got into it a few years ago. I know he has some family ties with it, and no, I got involved in this horse, and there was some more of the horse that could have been purchased. So he was the one guy I called, and he opted in. The horse won at Santa Anita in his first time with us. So we're pretty fired up about it.
Craig mentioned, the elevation, your stuff being one of the big reasons they were interested in you throughout the postseason. You kind of heard it a little bit, but what specifically, clicked for you in the postseason this year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it just because it was such a long period of time that I was pitching so poorly, but my back leg wasn't working right in terms of the sequencing in it, and there's just some little nuancy stuff that I just hadn't felt since I had been in a game. And I think when you get into a rehab scenario, there's a lot of feels that you have. You're trying to remember all the stuff I did pre-game to get myself right, and you've got this time period to get healthy, but also to improve. And I think sometimes you make those feels a little bit too real, and my back knee was actually kind of stuck back on the rubber, and then I had too much weight back there, so I would spin and pull, and pulling the ball to my glove side has never really been a big issue for me, and became a really big issue because the timing and kind of the way my weight was distributed was just making it really tough for me to rotate correctly. And in July, August, we kind of figured some stuff out in St. Louis, and the way the ball used to feel or the adjustments that I used to make started kind of working again. And one of those things, they always say aim small, miss small, but for me, the biggest thing is if the smaller the adjustment I can make, kind of the more dialed in I am, I feel like. So, a lot of the year, if I miss down away, then the next pitch would be I'd miss up in huge, right? Instead of knowing how to kind of make it a small miss and a small adjustment. So I think that was kind of it at the end of the year. And it's kind of a simple deal, but it just kind of clicked in, and then you can kind of get confidence in it and start making convicted throws. And that's kind of what we all want.
Walker, what's the feeling just closing out a World Series at Yankee Stadium, kind of no margin for error there, and just having the stuff you had that night? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, again, I was scared out of my mind. I have never been a very good reliever, and the series unfolds to where it does, and I run in there. I felt like about 2 pounds on the mound, but I think the biggest thing, at least mentally, was kind of the struggles that I had all year. I was okay losing the game. I was okay that I would wake up the next day if things went poorly, and I think that freedom is something that I've never really had as a reliever, and I've certainly never struggled the way I had, and it kind of took that to get there. So if there was kind of one good thing to come out of last year, it was certainly that.
Walker, what went into choosing number 0? Obviously a unique number.
Yeah, 21 was taken, or somewhat taken, or however you guys classify it. But no, I had a few options there at the end, and I don't know, it felt kind of fitting. We battled a lot on 00 or 0, but I think the smaller number makes me look a little skinnier out there, so I went with a single zero.
This team has only made the playoffs obviously once in the last 6 years, but you mentioned that winning was a big reason why, you came here. What makes you think that this team is, ready to win, ready to compete for a division or championship?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Devers and Devers is a big part of it. Story being back and hopefully having a fully healthy year. Obviously playing against him a ton in Colorado, I kind of know what kind of player he is. And then some of the younger guys in the development, obviously Duran had kind of that big boy year that kind of those great ones start with. And as he develops, I think he's going to be a really, really good player in this league. So that plus the kind of the rotation stuff we talked about and the back end of this bullpen is really veteran and really talented as well. So, I think we've got all the pieces. I keep seeing this stuff on the internet about the 18 Boston team and kind of how that was formed versus the team now. And I'm not the biggest internet guy, but it is kind of similar and there's some momentum, especially after the Crochet trade. We'll see what happens before spring training in terms of any other additions, but I certainly think there's the talent in that building to do some really good things.